Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Nicole Hennessy, Vice President of the Music Business Association. So excited to be here for our fourth installment of our Brand Summit 2020, Music for Good. We've had some great conversations over the past 4 weeks. We've spoken about music partnerships across sync, cannabis, and today we're going to be taking a look at how music and brands are supporting the new live that we're facing today as we near the end of 2020. I would be remiss if I did not take some time to thank our partners at Clio Music and G7 Entertainment Marketing for helping put together this program, for bringing some of their clients and their trusted partners on here to share their stories and share their expertise over the last 4 weeks. So I thank them for that. You're going to be hearing from both Clio and G7 here in just a few moments, but I do want to take the time first to also tell you, for those of you that aren't familiar with Zoom, which I'm sure most of you are at this point, there's a chat box and there's a question and answer box on your screen. The chat box is for networking, so go ahead, put your name in there, let everybody know that you're here, let everybody know what you do and how to connect with you. And then the Q&A box, if you have questions for our presenters as we're going through today's program, please take the time and put your questions in there. If we have time throughout these presentations, we will take a look at that questions box and make sure those questions get answered again if there's appropriate time. So I'm going to turn it over first to Michael Kaufman from Clio Music, here to talk to you a little bit more about the Clio Music program and then introduce our first guests.
Thank you, Nicole, and thanks to you, Portia, Aaron, and the team for your sustained support for our community. We really appreciate it. I am Michael Kaufman with the Clio Awards, where I spearhead the Clio Music program, which recognizes creativity in music marketing as well as the use of music in advertising. Our 2020 program is currently open for entries. So if you've had some creative work and you're interested in checking that out, you can go to clios.com/music. Our next deadline is December 4th. And you can always reach out directly to me if you have any questions. Also, I want to share, if you are looking for some daily inspiration, we have an editorial website called Muse by Clio, which is at musebycl.io. And that's where we cover creative work across all industries. We have some pretty remarkable music focused series, including one called Art of the Album, where folks share some of their favorite album covers over the years, as well as a series of Q&As with industry leaders called Liner Notes. So check out Muse by Clio. And I'm very, very grateful to today's panels. We've got a fantastic lineup. Really looking forward to the conversations. And I have the honor of kicking things off by introducing Matthew Yazgi. Matt currently serves as the VP Head of Research for MRC Data, where he leads commercial engagement, and he oversees MRC's research offerings for endemic music, film, TV clients, and brands. He has a decade of research and entertainment marketing experience, helping leaders in global entertainment and partnership marketing with their music, film, gaming, fashion, and lifestyle marketing strategies. And prior to MRC, Matt was with Nielsen. Most recently, he was leading the sports sponsorship and esports practices. Throughout his career, he's also served as a diversity and inclusion advocate and LGBTQ+ research subject matter expert, authoring multiple articles and white papers on the power of the LGBTQ+ consumer. We're really excited to have Matt come and share today. So Matt, take it away. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me. I think this is probably the only circumstance in my life where I will be opening up for John Gorley, but I'm happy to do that. I'm just trying to find... Awesome. So thank you for having me. Excited to be here and excited to share some insights to help set the stage for today's conversation. I'll give a very brief overview of who MRC is and why we were invited to speak, and then talk about the new live. Obviously things have changed quite a bit over the past 7 months. And then talk a little bit about the role that brands can play. And if there's time, I'll answer some questions. Please feel free to, in the question and answer feature within Zoom, to drop those in as we go along. And if I can't answer them at the end, we'll follow up afterwards with some answers. Awesome. So MRC Data, you may know us as Nielsen Music. I was actually with Nielsen Music for about 4 years in a prior role. but they are now owned by MRC. We are the currency in music and entertainment. Our data feeds the Billboard charts. We now have a global chart, which is very exciting, that we've launched in conjunction with Billboard. And we have industry expertise to put all of this data into context. You may not be familiar with the MRC name, but I guarantee you know some of these big brands that are part of our portfolio. We have a TV and film production studio that work on a lot of great shows, including The Great, and last year's big hit, Knives Out. The Dick Clark Productions company also sits within MRC, and so do a number of publications, given the latest announcement of the joint venture between MRC and PMC. Most of you, if you do know us, you know us from our music consumption data, like I said, that feeds the Billboard charts. We report out music streams, sales, radio airplay for the US, Canada, and now most recently for the total global numbers. Everything my team does is actually the other section of this, this chart, looking at audience and consumer insights, as well as media and experiential. And that experiential piece will be what we focus on the most here today. So jumping right into the new live, I want to give some context for the insights we're going to be seeing here. Most of them are from the most recent wave of our COVID entertainment tracker, which we've been doing since about the second week of lockdown in the US in late March. The most recent wave was fielded in mid-September. We'll have some data from there, and also some data from our Music 360 study, which was fielded over the summer. One of the things that I want to point out before we look at how people's entertainment behaviors are changing, looking at other behaviors, right? So what are people willing to leave their house for at the moment? It's still largely focused on essentials. So people are going to the supermarket, mass merchandisers, convenience stores, and everything falls off after that. I think the reason why you're seeing clothing stores and department stores, it's a combination of change of season and back to school. So, you know, folks are going out in places where it's safe to do that. But things like going to the gym, staying at hotels, getting your hair cut, those are certainly not priorities for the majority of Americans at the moment. And with all this time in the home, then there's a renewed attention given to streaming. And so we asked across both music and film and TV streaming, you know, have you added a new subscription? Have you canceled a subscription? And we're seeing almost even rates for that. So people are giving it a lot of attention. It doesn't mean that it's kind of like a field day for everybody where they're just going to keep adding services and nothing's going to go away. But it is a time of discovery, and people, you know, almost 90% of people plan to continue paying for a service they added during the pandemic. And this is especially true of music. So over half of consumers have added a music subscription service during the pandemic. And just shy of half of them are listening to music that's new to them. So not necessarily new releases, but, you know, with this extra time, they're discovering new artists and new tracks from artists they already follow. One of the most interesting things I think that's happened this year is the increase of what I'll call non-traditional platforms and helping with music discovery. Video games is certainly at the front edge of this, with players like Twitch, Fortnite, and others getting into the mix with music. I'm sure you all saw the Travis Scott integration, and there was actually a really big write-up of that in Billboard over the summer. That was such a success that Fortnite then rolled out 3 more separate concerts with Diplo and several guests. And then in September, Fortnite announced that they were going to have a regular Party Royale Spotlight series where they were going to highlight a different artist every week. And this is really interesting because it's not just discovery, but it is a version of live, right? So you can experience this in the game as an avatar. And if you're wearing your headset, you can be talking to your friends. And it is a very social experience that I think of all the things I've seen is one of the closest to mimicking what it's like to actually go to a show with some of your friends. But if we look at more traditional live streaming, so if you think of like virtual concerts, things where artists are actually producing something meant solely to be a concert that's streamed. we're seeing a crystallizing of that audience, that core audience, because the interest in streaming a concert in the next 2 weeks is down slightly from when we asked this question over the summer. But the experience is getting better. So fewer people are complaining about technical issues, fewer people are complaining about the length, that it's too long and they're losing interest. So we're seeing that between the fans that are actually genuinely interested and not just coming in to see what it's all about, and the industry realizing what's working, we're coalescing around what this experience is probably going to look like in a longer term. And if we look at folks that have streamed a concert, they're not just doing it once. On average, they've watched 5 concerts since the beginning of the pandemic. And over half of them have paid for at least one of those shows. And they have a very high satisfaction with that experience. And you see big artists like Billie Eilish getting involved. She had a concert this past weekend, charging $30 a ticket. And that was a very highly produced event, which really, I think, consumers were willing to pay for because they knew they were getting something special. I think we've moved away from the time when it was just a lot of Instagram lives from Artist's Couch, and certainly that has a role to play, but it's now being seen more as a potential revenue driver while artists can't tour. And we're seeing the same impact on streaming that we would from an in-person concert. So we usually see a lift in the market where artists perform on their streaming, probably the couple days to a week after the performance. Univision had a concert with Bad Bunny where they drove him all over New York City and broadcast it nationally, and we saw a 21% lift in streams the day after the concert, and that is a national number. And so what's the role of brands in all of this? This is from an earlier wave, but we are seeing that consumers are very accepting of brands in this space. They're going to view a brand more favorably if they provide ways for family and friends to connect from a distance, if they are supporting artists right now, and if they're involved in virtual concerts, be that through sponsorships or through offsetting the cost of those concerts through advertising. And a couple quick examples here. Country's done a really good job of this, and certainly Country is having a streaming moment right now. But if you look at brands like Verizon, Miller Lite, and Amazon Music, taking some of these artist partnerships and taking them virtual, they've been really successful. And what we've seen is people have an increased likelihood to pay for an event like this if it's a benefit. And so each one of these brands found a way that was fitting with their brand message to support these concerts and have a benefit. So Verizon has small business services, and so you'll see that their concert raised donations for small business relief across the country. Miller Lite had a concert to benefit bartenders affected by shutdowns, and then Amazon Music partnering with Music Cares, supporting artists that are out of work during the pandemic. And I would be remiss if I didn't bring up Black Lives Matter. We did a standalone study on Black Lives Matter and the role that consumers expect to see the music industry playing here. And if we're speaking about music for good, I think there could be no greater good than the work that's going on right now for racial and social justice. 73% of the general population has taken some action to support Black Lives Matter. And that could be anything from posting on social media, signing petitions, marching, protesting, making donations. But I think it shows the shift that this country has taken, that so many people are supporting the movement. And that number gets even higher when you look at younger generations, be it millennial or Gen Z, which are two very, very valuable audiences to brands. And so that brings me to, consumers will support brands that take a stand. I won't go too deep into this example here on the left, but P&G had a very well done PSA for talking about bias and racial justice that I encourage you to go check out. But the example that I think is a little bit more relevant to today's conversation is the Chase example. And they have a longstanding sponsorship with the US Open. And as part of their engagement there, they usually do pre-match music and concerts and performances. And it, to me, it is not a coincidence that the 3 artists they selected this year were artists of color and Black artists. So it doesn't have to be, as a brand supporting the Black Lives Matter movement and doing it in music doesn't have to be a brand new investment or this complete reimagining of what you're doing. You can take the activities and the sponsorships and the partnerships you have in place and leverage them for good. So I'm like right on a little bit over. So I hope this was helpful. Hopefully it helps set the stage for some of the conversation that's about to come up on the great panel. And I will try and respond in the comments with some answers to some of those questions because I don't want to eat into the other presenters' time. So thank you very much. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out directly.
Awesome. That was fantastic stuff. Thank you so much, Matt. And looking forward to sharing even more insights with you later this year with the MRC Data Year-End Music 2020 report. So again, thank you to Matt, and drop any additional questions you guys might have for him and those stats in the Q&A. All right, so hi everyone, I'm Andrew Hamp. As Jess and Michael mentioned earlier, I'm going to be moderating the next 2 sessions for you today. I'm the founder of 1803 LLC, which is a music marketing consultancy based in the Bay Area. And I work with a variety of companies, editorial brands, and other entities all around the intersection of music marketing and media. So with that, let's kick things off on how the next 2 panels are supporting the new live. As we all know, virtual concerts became the new normal for 2020 and will continue to be so for most, if not all, of 2021. So what does that mean for new levels of innovation for production, brand engagement, and of course the artists themselves performing at these shows? We're about to hear from the head of part sponsorships at South by Southwest, as well as John Gurley, the Grammy-winning frontman and lead singer and guitarist for Portugal the Man, about all of these things and many more. So welcome, gentlemen. Welcome, Scott. Welcome, John. Thank you both for being here.
Hey, happy to be here.
Hey. Tell us Scott, tell us where you're based right now. Are you home in Austin?
Yeah, I'm based in Austin, where South by Southwest is located.
Excellent. And John, how about you? Where were we talking to you from today?
I am in Troutdale, Oregon. I'm on the Sandy River fishing every day. I think I used to play in a band at one point.
Yeah, as of last week with your Savor Stages show, I think you still do. But yes, we're all a little spaced right now. But yeah, glad to see you're able to enjoy the finer things in life as well.
Oh yeah.
So we're going to spend the next half hour talking about, again, like I said, this new normal that we're all in and what the year ahead is going to continue to look like. So Scott, no one, I think, represents that more than you in South by Southwest, given that when you guys made your unfortunate news back in March that you were going to postpone until further notice, that was kind of the beginning of this indefinite virtual period we're all in as far as live events. So walk us through what that decision looked like, how you were able to pivot some of that already to virtual with some of the programming that you did this summer, and then with last week's announcement that 2021 South by Southwest will be mostly virtual, what is that going to look like? So yeah, kind of steer us through these last 8 months.
Yeah, so I'll try to keep it brief. March was tough, as you can imagine. We followed the lead of Austin Public Health, the Regional Health Authority, the City of Austin, the mayor, and so forth, on whether we could produce South by Southwest or not safely, as the pandemic hadn't really hit yet. So we, until the day really of the cancellation, when Travis County Judge and Austin Public Health and the mayor declared that South by Southwest could not happen, we were planning to produce South by Southwest as we believed we could at the time, produce an event that was safe. We've been working on various safety protocols. And so then when the news came, I think it was March 6th of the cancellation, we were a week out from the event. So a huge event that includes 7,000 individual showcases and screenings and panels over 10 days. There was a lot to unpack there and to deal with. And the primary focus when it went down was communicating with all of our partners, all of our artists, filmmakers, brands, and registrants as much as we did know, and trying to keep an ongoing dialogue with them about what would happen next. And as this situation is still obviously very uncertain and fluid, in March, it was really, there was so much unknown that it was uncharted waters for everybody, including those of us who've been with South by Southwest and helping it evolve over the decades. A 33-year-old event that stayed fresh over the years by evolving, to meet the needs of creatives throughout the country and the globe. The cancellation made us rethink everything.
Yeah. Excellent. So, and tell us about, since your role is managing all your global brand partners, who were some of those brands who were ready to activate with you for the 2020 version, and what will some of those activations or what have they looked like for some of this virtual programming you've done?
Yeah, so the virtual events were just announced. We're working on what the platform, we had the platforms locked in, but we're working on exactly how partner brands can be involved in them. And the last meeting I was on was with our music festival heads of programming, talking about a whole lot of how we're going to present musical performance, but also how brands could support. So a lot of that is a work in progress. The plan right now is to hold a South by Southwest online in March, and the hope is to be able to produce another in-person South by Southwest event in 2021. Ideally it would be March, but perhaps summer or later year. But we're really not able to make a call on that until we know more about health and safety. Brand partners we work with, from top level partners to those that are startups on the trade show and so forth, hundreds of different brands, everyone from Kia Motors to White Claw, Visible, Wireless, Audible, Schweppes, Target, Accelerator, a lot of different brands, both in consumer products and technology, and the technology sector. So we're working with those brands now, having announced the virtual events in March, on what we know we can offer, and also having a lot of discussions around ideas they have for customization, and trying to basically match what our new platform will offer and be capable of for the virtual events with what the interests of the brands are moving forward. Some brands have been conducting certain campaigns that have been successful this year already. Many brands that we're talking with are really still ideating on what's possible next year. The vast majority of brands we're working with and talking to are, a lot of them are talking about hybrid, planning something that's hybrid, something virtual that meets the in real life experience. And I think we all feel like that's really kind of the future in many ways, is to keep the virtual experience relevant, robust, engaging. And so we can really offer a full experience to those that want to participate, both in person in the future and virtually throughout the world.
Absolutely. I want to come back to some of that in just a sec, but John, let's bring you in here. So when we talk about live streams, how do you feel about them as an artist, especially as someone who hasn't always been able to play in the same room as your bandmates, as you're all in different parts of the country, right? So, I think we all view live streams as a band-aid, not a permanent solution by any means, but certainly a temporary solve for when we can all safely go back again. So how do you approach it creatively when you've had opportunities like what you guys did with Tito's and Mount Hood, or even this past week with Save Our Stages? How do you guys like to conceive of your approach to these things?
Yeah, it's kind of tough. Nothing really compares to the live experience. But honestly, I think this is it's such a great moment for everybody in music to just step away for a second and really think about creative ways to do what we do. I mean, like I hang out with my daughter and we watch Twitch, we watch YouTube, like we do all these things that are like, it is all virtual anyway. I mean, that is the way the world has been working for a few years now. Like, it's not like this is just out of nowhere. And it is interesting seeing everything before about like 40% of people canceling subscriptions and starting new subscription services. I think it's kind of cool to see, like, everybody sitting at home going, oh, well, I'm paying for this thing that I don't even like watching. Like, I don't even see anything on here. So you actually get to look at it. But I think for artists, it really is about, this is just the future in general. I mean, I don't even see like watching kids play video games or watching Twitch is, I think it's really exciting. I think it's cool seeing like people in their bedroom creating content and doing and being extremely successful with that.
Yeah.
I know none of this really relates to music, but it is the world that we live in, and I think it's just as interesting watching somebody walk me through a game and react to the game as it is playing the game in some cases. And that's what we should be doing as artists. Like, we should be looking at simple and creative ways to deliver these performances. Like with Tito's, like we got to go to Mount Hood and play on a mountain. It doesn't really have the same interaction as like a show would, because I mean, you're essentially creating commercials for people.
Right.
Which I think is a great thing. I mean, I grew up in Alaska. I discovered so much music through advertisements, and that's a very real thing. I mean, it's again, especially today, like we live in a world full of ads. Like I would much rather discover something I love through that ad versus, God, please let me move on from this. Like I want to find something, and I think that's what bands should be really focused on, is when you go into these rooms and just decorate your room. Can you like make something exciting for me to look at when I watch? And I don't know, I've enjoyed a lot of this stuff. Like the Travis Scott Fortnite event was like, that's obviously like as big as it can get. I mean, you're Travis Scott. You got a meal at McDonald's. Like, dude is bigger than all of this. But I thought that was really cool and really exciting. And Fortnite has kind of always been on top of that stuff. It's and video games, that really is the future. Play concerts and video games. Like, I lived in that world all my life. And how cool to actually have like a real world experience while you're doing it. And again, the interactive element of it, like, yeah, I was on there with my friends. Like I was with my squad talking about how cool this is. Like we all showed up to watch Travis Scott. And yeah, I think it's a good time for us to take a look at things. And just with as much materialism and consumer culture there is right now, like it's such a great moment to go, well, I like this band, I can pay for that.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely. Yeah. The way we all spend our money is a political act right now, because it's directly supporting folks who need it most. I mean, musicians for the most part are furloughed. So absolutely. I want to come back to your early days, John, in a second, because Scott, I think the history of South by, of course, is rooted in music discovery. We've all had, for anyone who's been to South by, has a story where they say, I discovered John Mayer there, you know, on the Stub stage, or I saw Amy Winehouse play in 2011 or whatever it was. So how will that be a focus of this virtual phase you guys are looking at? I mean, superstars are great and they bring the money, they bring the eyeballs, right? But how do you make sure that you're still incubating the next Amy Winehouse from a virtual event?
Yeah. Well, I think the heart and soul of South by Southwest has always been helping creatives achieve their goals. And so creatives at every level. Yeah. And in maybe more recent years, we've had some of the more of the higher profile artists perform, many of them bringing emerging acts to support them, to help give them, you know, more amplification. So the purpose of South by Southwest, the mission remains the same, which is helping creatives achieve their goals. We are, you know, a business. We need to generate revenue to stay in business. But without top level programming, you know, there's nothing. What John touched on, with his comments, really, I think gets to one of the most important facets of South by Southwest, whether virtual will be for virtual or the in-person South by Southwest. And anyone that's been there knows that the networking, meeting other people, those you know in the industry, but sometimes those you don't know, someone in a panel, and having a conversation afterwards that turns into an ideation session that turns into a new collaboration. So, we're listening to our brands and what's working now. We're watching events that are occurring since the cancellation. South by Southwest has done a number of things early in the process. In the spring after the cancellation, 33 years running the first cancellation of South by Southwest, we were still able to, as a collective, our programmers worked, really kind of drove on a number of programs around getting some of the creative work that was supposed to premiere or showcase at South by Southwest out there. And so we worked with Amazon Prime to offer some independent films that were scheduled to premiere at South by Southwest for a certain amount of time. We worked with Oculus on a VR program. We worked with Vimeo on episodic content pilot premieres. And then we also produced our own, what we called South by Southwest Sessions, which was a series of talks, not too unlike this, with some interactive aspects where we sort of merged creative ideation in industry, film, tech, music, and gaming, and so on, with some entertainment factors. And so, the goal remains the same. It's just a matter of how do we bring people together in a virtual environment until we can produce the next in-person South by Southwest. I think the two-way dialogue is huge. I think that, like the Twitch reference that John made, the ability for people to have a live experience, whether it's gaming or Twitch is playing more in music and live music, being able to have that experience with your friends, albeit virtually, is really important. And for many of us right now, I mean, the group on this panel, it's the only way we could get together at the time being. So there's a lot of good ideas coming about. One of our key partners, Visible Wireless, was the presenter of the Red Rocks Unpause program. Mm-hmm. So if you watch that, some higher level talent, but there was an interactivity to it. The consumers could weigh in on set list and certain song selection that artists performed. So a really cool two-way experience and there's some videos out there on recapping that program that was really exciting. So how do we bring some of these ideas to our virtual events is what we're in multiple meetings on, daily, trying to brainstorm and bring together the most compelling virtual experience possible with the ability for our brands as well as the registrant base to interact.
Absolutely. John, before you had your Feel It Still moment a couple years ago, and that was your first massive global hit, you guys were still able to headline as a touring act because you cut your teeth on the road for so many years. But I'm curious, for the bands who want to become the next Portugal the Man, but can't live from gig to gig right now necessarily, what advice would you have for them to get heard, get seen in this moment that we're all in?
Oh, find an already existing hit, do an interpolation of that, and it worked before.
Call whoever manages the Marvelettes catalog.
Yeah, you know what? This is, again, dude. When I look at this stuff, this is a great moment for music. The music scene has been oversaturated for so long. There's just been way too much going on. Like, everybody with a YouTube channel and an Instagram account plays in a band. Like, they all do it. And it's not really how this works. I mean, coming up, like, we had a minivan, we had a rice cooker and a 5-pound bag of rice, and we would eat on $1 a day. We'd get $1 worth of vegetables a day, and we'd have one meal. Mm-hmm. And once a week or every 2 weeks, we would do a $1 menu item at a fast food restaurant. I mean, chasing this job and chasing these, like, music is something that you kind of have to do. Like, and I feel like the struggle is a big part of that.
Yeah.
There's like extreme talents and people that know how music works, but there's this other side that makes it work. And I think it's important to not forget that. And this is actually giving bands an opportunity to take a step back and say, number one, do I want to do this? Like, is this something that I actually want to chase? Because it's a lot of work. You know, this is, I mean, it's been, Cherry Glazer is one that I watch, and just watching Clem's Instagram and just the way she's like bouncing around, she's doing creative sessions within her bubble, and it's networking. Like, it's finally having this opportunity to not only like, I don't know, networking is such a weird word because it is kind of a dirty word. Like, when we really think about it, like, oh, you can help me. Like, we should be friends. But it's opened up this world of like, yeah, you have a favorite artist, reach out to them. Like, reach out to in their DMs and be like, hey, do you want to trade some sessions back and forth? That's exciting. Collaboration has always been exciting to me.
Yeah.
We never had the opportunity up until recently, but getting to do it is like, they're all reachable and everything's attainable. It's cool to see these artists working on collaborations right now. And that's what I've seen more than anything, is I see younger artists reaching out to people, and that's what really drives us to get better and do better and make better music, is really playing with people that can push us.
Mhm. Yeah, at the start of this brand summit a couple weeks ago, we had Ryan Tedder on, and he was saying how, you know, because he's a touring musician as well with One Republic. So the pandemic for him has just been this boom of creativity, because he's finally able to be in one place, collaborate with folks he's been trying to get in a room with for months, if not years. So who is that for you? Who have you had collabs with for your next Portugal Demand record that you might not have been able to work with?
Oh man, we've been doing so much fun stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been working with Paul Williams a lot,
Mhm.
and Paul Williams wrote Rainbow Connection. I
Yeah.
mean, he is just like a master
Legend.
songwriter.
It's amazing.
Yeah, and that's somebody that just super inspiring. Like, that's who I've been reaching out to. I've been reaching out to people that I've always just appreciated from afar. Edgar
Yeah.
Winter, like some like real nuts, and just getting stories about what made them great. I mean, a lot of what made our band great, I hate to say that it's in the past, but it really is. It's those moments of like sleeping on the floor together. It's the moments of like, you're in my bubble, like, come over to my place, like, let's work, let's do something. And again, I just think there's something really special about this moment, having the ability to just take a step back and say, you know what, I'm just gonna call that person. Like, I'm just gonna DM them and see if they write back. And pretty much everybody gets back. And it's always fun. I mean, just working pre-COVID, but working with Cherry Glazer on a song was just so much fun. And it was just the four of us in the studio.
That's amazing. Well, I cannot wait to hear that. I'm a massive Cherry Glazer fan myself. We've got a little bit of time left with these guys. If you do have any questions, slide into the Q&A. Drop your questions for either Scott or John. Scott, John just talked about, you know, what's inspiring him as far as, you know, ways people are connecting, collaborating, et cetera, in the real world. What are some global live streams that you've seen that impress you and might potentially create a production model for your next South by stuff?
Yeah, so we're all sharing a lot of different ideas. I personally have seen an artist called Violet Road out of Tromsø, Norway, do a tour on a boat deck to various ports and piers along the Norwegian coast. To me, you know, the recap video on that is publicly available. I can put it in the chat after the session. Really fun and exciting stuff that sort of play into socially distancing, being smart, but trying to keep, you know, the magic alive of music and being able to bring a live performance to fans that in a really unique setting. So, you know, those kinds of things are inspiring to see. We've been working on trying to run different models on how do we help independent artists and independent venues throughout this program. The South by Southwest Music Festival showcases occur on almost 100 stages in clubs throughout central Austin. So those clubs really, you know, are the core of, you know, the experience of the music festival for South by Southwest. So, seeing clubs close, seeing initiatives like NEVA supporting independent venues is huge. And I think that, I think networking turns to collaboration, as John was saying, and trying new things. I mean, I'm excited about whether it's creatives, musical artists, filmmakers, etc., or brands. Over one of the silver linings, I think, during this pandemic has been that there's more forgiveness than ever for trying new things, trying, failing, rebooting. And so it's exciting to see some of the ideas that are being presented and attempted, some of which probably would never have been considered or put into implemented prior to such a challenging time. So we're constantly watching what others are doing and trying to get inspired by that and keep a dialogue open with labels, management, artists direct, filmmakers, and so on.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, I cannot stress enough how important Save Our Stage is in particular, as it affects many of those venues who are part of your network. Speaking of philanthropy, real quick, John, tell us about you've also been able to use some of this time to refocus on your PTM Foundation. Tell us about that, and even how that's manifested in things like your recent collab with Weird Al that just came out.
Yeah, so I mean, this is something we've been working on for years, really. I mean, soon after leaving Alaska, touring around, there was just this feeling like we grew up so close to the indigenous culture in Alaska. It's everywhere. I mean, you see it in New Mexico when you travel through there. Like, there's like little pockets of it as you travel around the US, but we weren't seeing representation of indigenous communities as we traveled around. And so we kind of started putting together ways to start doing land acknowledgements at our shows. And that was just a great way to start connecting with community as we travel through. And the land acknowledgements were more about letting people speak, allowing people to speak, and passing the mic, not even allowing people to speak. It's literally their land that we're on right now. Yep. So it has given us a chance to take a step back and just look at ways we can amplify voices without being in the way. Yeah, I mean, our project with Weird Al, like that song, we had written this song about fences and the death of Western migration, and essentially like the death of the cowboy nomadic culture, and these kind of arbitrary lines that we put up, which are all too real during COVID. With COVID happening, like you are in a bubble. Mm-hmm. Like this, it's not real, but it exists. And it was just a good way to let a Kosia shine, the jingle dress dancer in our video. And I mean, honestly, like more than anything, it really is about getting out of the way for us. So a lot of what we've been doing is like, how do we raise voices and amplify voices without it being about us? Yeah. And that's kind of what everybody needs to get away with. I see it at events. I see it with politicians that do land acknowledgement. It's about them. It's never about the people. Yeah. And I think it's a really great chance for people to actually see what their constituents think by hearing what people have to say.
That's right. I mean, yeah, if there is one theme beyond COVID, of course, to 2020, it is share the mic with underrepresented voices and certainly marginalized voices. So very important what you guys are doing for Indigenous Peoples Day and recognition. Before we wrap, Scott, tell us a little bit about, obviously, social justice, racial equity, et cetera, are equally important and timely topics. How might those manifest themselves in the next iteration of South by?
Well, we've been doing a lot of work with HBCUs and some of our brands, like Capital One as a financial partner, did some in-depth programming in recent years. We've spent a lot of time internally at our company working on diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, looking, introspectively looking at our company and how do we become more diverse and strengthen our overall organization through that diversity and diversity of all types. So we kind of have an internal working going on, but certainly the programming focus will have will have more of a focus. We've been leaning more heavily into environment, diversity and inclusion in recent years. But obviously this year has just been quite a year. I mean, what a year. I mean, don't have to say it. No, everybody knows it. But I mean, that work is near and dear to our hearts, and a lot of the work for us to be doing, myself personally, and us as an organization, includes listening. Listening to others, figuring out how we can help amplify voices. And so that's an ongoing work of ours, but it's something that many of us feel very passionate about. And one of the things I'll share that I think is very relevant is this virtual South by Southwest will have 7 main themes of programming. And so I'll share a link after this session on what those themes are. They're publicly pretty easy to find, but I'll send you the links so you can check them out. And I think you'll see that many of those themes, they touch really closely on how creative entertainment industries can be supported and can support initiatives in diversity, equity, and inclusion, which I think that the arts has been probably ahead of the curve for years, if not decades, in that area. But there's just so much further to go and so much more work to do.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing that. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing some of those themes in the chat. John, before we wrap, we do have one audience question, which I knew was going to come up. What's next for PTM New Music? What's the story?
Oh, goodness. Like when all of this started happening, I got completely sapped. I think a lot of people did. It was this weird moment of, wait, what happened? Like this was me. Like I have no identity outside of music. I haven't been home this long since I was 16.
Yeah.
This is really the first time I've been home this long. And I didn't know what to do with myself. And again, like you look at COVID response, representation, just everything that's happening in the world right now. It took a lot of energy for us to be picking up phones. And like we were on the phone for the first 4 months.
Yeah.
And just in the last few weeks, like I hate to tell everybody this, but I did the same thing I always do, which is I throw it out and start over, because that's what I do. Like the world changed. Like, how do you put out music? I've actually never really understood the whole, like, okay, turn in your record, in 6 months it'll come out.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're all speaking to each other in the moment. And again, the great thing about COVID is watching people interact, release music, just kind of do things as it comes. So I mean, we actually have a couple records worth of music like ready, and it's just how do you do it?
Yeah.
Like, did you have to put it out because we're talking about what's happening right now.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we've been working on a record about like generational connections and just the reason I play music, and it's family, and it's something that I haven't written about in a little while, and I think it's really important, especially given the times. Like really care about the people around you, really think about the land, again, the land you're on.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're stuck in it. Like I've seen so many friends, like I'm learning how to garden. Like
Yeah.
start picking up that indigenous knowledge, start passing that on and passing on those traditions, and again recognize the people of the land. And that's all I've been doing. But I'm finally at that like creative zone where I just got back from LA and I just dumped it out.
Yeah.
I went down, did the bubble recording, and it was awesome. Super fun, and the most creative I've felt in a long time. I also picked up a guitar for the first time, like actually to play guitar.
Mm-hmm.
That's what COVID did for me. Like I haven't just picked up a guitar to play in 10 years. Like actually sit down with pedals and be like, oh, that's the sound that makes. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
it works like this. I hadn't done it in so long because we tour so much. So it was a nice time to reconnect with that instrument and really get to know it.
Yeah, I think we've all forgotten the why of whatever it is we do. So yeah, certainly be able to reconnect with all of that. Absolutely. All right. Well, I can't thank Scott and John enough for kicking things off. If you haven't already, check out the link that Scott dropped in the chat and register for South by 2021. Hopefully we will all be meeting there again in person very, very soon. And definitely check out John's new song with Portugal the Man and Weird Al Yankovic, Who's Gonna Stop Me, which is in recognition of Indigenous people. So thank you both. That's a great tee up to our next discussion. I'm pleased to be joined by Heather Henderson Thomas. She's the Senior Manager of Strategic Ops and Event Experiences at Cisco, and Rick Wetzel, the Vice President of G7 Entertainment Marketing. Please welcome Heather and Rick to the virtual stage.
Hi, Andrew. Hi, Heather.
Hello, hello.
Hi, guys. Tell us a little bit where you're joining us from today. Rick, where are you zooming in from?
I'm in actually in Nashville, Tennessee, and I'm in my very desolate office. There are 3 of us in the building, so it's thanks to COVID, you get to work very diligently by yourself most of the time.
That's right. Very sporty office, though. I like your memorabilia. Heather, thank you for joining us and thank you for joining us on a Zoom. I know we're going to be spending the next 40 minutes talking about Cisco, of course, but thank you for doing that. Where are you joining us from today?
Well, I'm joining you from beautiful Northern California. I work out of our main headquarters here in San Jose, but I am in my home office where I have been for several months. So happy to be here.
Excellent. Loving the lavender. Thank you so much for joining us. So as we just saw from that sizzle, you guys were able to move on your feet to pivot what was planned as an in-person Cisco Live to a series of virtual surprise and delights with big name artists. So walk us through what that looked like. Where was Cisco Live originally going to take place, and then how were you able to reimagine it with the Chainsmokers, Fall Out Boy, and some of the other artists you worked with on that event in particular?
Oh, to relive those few days, right, Rick?
Yeah, no kidding, right?
So Cisco Live 2020 is our largest customer event within Cisco, and it was scheduled to take place in June in Las Vegas. We work on about an 18-month planning cycle to bring it to life. It's about 28,000 people, 5 days, main stage keynotes, big name entertainment all week long. So it's a lot. It's a very big endeavor. So we started looking at, well, the actual date we announced the shift was March 16th. And we started talking about what could we do? What are the options? How do we repurpose the talent that we have? And then where do we infuse some? And Rick came up with some great ideas. And Rick, I'll let you talk about what ideas you came up with and how we brought those to life.
Well, let me take one step back too and let everybody know that when all this started to happen, nobody knew what was going to go on. Nobody knew if these performances were going to be moved. And I'm not talking about just this one, but across the board, concerts, events, everything. As the dominoes started to fall, there was a lot of back and forth between cancellations and force majeures and everything going back and forth. And the beauty of having Heather and Cisco as a partner is Heather didn't say, well, let's take everybody to court and let's see what we can get out of these guys. She said, hey, look, you know what? We want to be good partners for the music industry. Let's go ahead. Let's keep these things in place. Let's talk to these artists that we already have booked and see what we can do with them. And that's when it was time to kind of get creative and say, okay, what would people really like to see? And this was the early days of the playing guitar in a kitchen sort of thing too. And that didn't feel like it was going to strike the right chord, and it wasn't going to have the energy that is going to keep people from turning away from their screens. Mm-hmm. So we got creative, and we were really lucky to have artists who were so fantastic. And Joan Jett, and to have an icon like that say, yeah, I'll sit down for an interview. Let's do a super cool interview rather than a performance. And, the Chainsmokers, when we said, hey, what can you guys do to show us how you record? And they were like, heck yeah, we'll do that. That'll be fun. And those guys said, you know what, let's do a 3-camera shoot in our studio and show everybody how we work. And the guys from Fall Out Boy said, oh yeah, we'd love to show you how we sit and kind of bounce songs around. So for us, it was fantastic. And then we were able to get 2 other, really big names, and Dave Matthews and Sting. And they were really just saying, hey, look, we'll play, we're set up to record. Let's do something fun. So we were able to get these artists to adapt really quickly. And kudos to everybody involved. Kudos to the guys from Cisco for saying, okay, it's not what we were going to do, but this is going to be great. Kudos to the artists for saying, hey, this isn't what we planned on doing, but we don't know what's going to happen next. So we let's do something fun. And that's kind of where we got.
And it was such the early days of this whole pivot. I mean, we were kind of at the very start of when everything, I mean, we pivoted Cisco Live the day after Las Vegas closed. So it was just early on, and we just didn't know what we didn't know. And I have a unique perspective, not only in my role in Cisco, but my husband's in the music industry. So I understand a lot about the artists and what they were going through. And he and I were talking a lot about just what the artists need, and they just want to connect with, they want their art, they want to do their art, do their craft, and connect with an audience. And so when the ideas started being generated about what we could do, I was so excited because, it's a whole industry that was getting hit so hard. And if we had the opportunity to help support in some small way, while also delivering, great entertainment and that energy boost everybody needed at that time, when it felt like the days were really dark because there was so much unknown, it was like this win all the way around. So yeah, it was painful going through, but we landed at a really great spot. And I think it really set us up for success as we look for what we're going to do in the future with our digital events.
And to echo Rick's sentiments, thank you for that forward thinking, because brands like yours are literally keeping the music industry's lights on. So certainly having that mindset of this is going to happen no matter what, let's innovate, let's just move on and pivot. So let's take a step back real quick. Tell us a little bit about the history of Cisco Live, because I understand that the two of you in particular have a long history of working together on different Cisco Live events over the years. Who is the audience for these typically, especially when they're real world events, and how has the program evolved?
Okay, so Cisco Live is we started in 1989 as networkers, kind of in the early days of Cisco as a company. And we have grown from a very small 200-person event to now nearly 30,000 people, about 14 different programs and different audiences participating within Cisco Live. We're just a major moment in the time each fiscal year for Cisco to connect with our customers, for our partners to connect with our customers, and to have the opportunity to engage and educate people on our technologies and what's new out there. And Cisco Live takes place around the globe 3 times a year. I'm primarily focused on the US event that typically happens in the June timeframe. So, and Rick and I have been working together as I've been on the program. This is my 15th Cisco Live. So I love what I get to do because it is never dull. It's never the same thing twice. And we've just had this great partnership with George P. Johnson and with G7 along the way, not just on Cisco Live, but on our other flagship events within the Global Events organization here at Cisco. Rick, how long have we been? It's over 10 years.
Yeah, it's over 10 years. It gets gray after that. So long time.
And Rick, tell us about the engagement that you get at these shows, because we were talking the other day about how, typically when you think corporate event, like it's people looking at their phones, talking over the band, et cetera, not an ideal experience, but the Cisco Live is the opposite of that. Tell us about why that is.
Yeah, one of the things that, Cisco's been great about is they love basically cloning the artist touring production. So the people that are coming to Cisco Live are music fans. They are going to South by Southwest. They're going to every festival. And so when they come to Cisco Live, and Cisco Live typically takes place in a stadium or an arena, it's a big, big event. When they come there, they're not coming to just socialize. They're coming to see a show. So that, for us, means we have to make sure the production values are there. We have to make sure that the emphasis is on the artist in that situation, that it's not set up for the artist to be background music. The artist they're headlining artists, and they're there to headline. They're there to entertain. That's why it's been great with Cisco. They understand the production costs. They understand what type of artist they want, and they understand what it takes to get that type of artist.
Well, and I think Rick has worked, and the G7 team has worked with us for a long time and across multiple events, that they understand our audience and our demographic. And each event has a little bit of nuance as to what type of talent would work best with that audience. But I think we just fine tune it and we hone in on it. And the team has also been great about bringing us kind of cutting edge, new on the scene right as they are rising up. I remember one year we got Imagine Dragons before they won a Grammy. And we were kind of like, we don't know this band. And Rick's like, you want these guys. We got them. We paired them with Lenny Kravitz. And not 2 weeks later, they win a Grammy. And it's just like our audience went crazy excited. So just a really great example of the partnership and how really understanding your audience and what motivates them or what engages them makes all the difference in your success.
Yeah. Well, speaking of success, Heather, two quick questions for you there. So what are your KPIs for a program like this? How do you measure the impact of something like this? Like, how does a show for 28,000 people in a stadium translate to your business?
Right. Well, there are probably 32 KPIs I could rattle off for you, but I won't bore you with that. But the main thing is, when you boil it down, and I've said this for 15 years, our job as an event is to drive business impact for Cisco. That's my job. We all have a different role to play in how we get it done, but I'm within the growth marketing organization, and that's my job. Amplify Cisco's brand, amplify our message, build awareness, drive loyalty. And so that's what we try to do with Cisco Live and with our flagship events is not only educate, because we want our customers to be the heroes within their organizations, because they're the IT guys. These are the guys we live in and die by our networks working. And so our audience, they really are superheroes. So they come for really intense education, but then we want to complement that entire experience with entertainment and celebration and engagement on the right level so that it's not just all death by PowerPoint. It's you walk away from an experience and you remember these really amazing moments that just further draw you to the brand, both the Cisco and the Cisco Live brand. So I think that's our biggest measurement is how engaged was the audience with us across the week, and do they become an evangelist and a loyalist to Cisco? I think those are kind of the two biggest ones that bubble up as far as our KPIs.
Yeah, and obviously we're all in a indefinite work from home moment for most of us right now. How has that impacted your business? I'm sure it's helped. I think just a little.
It's really hard for someone who has been in the events industry for 30 years. I started when I was 12. It's really hard for me. I'm very much a people person, so I have to be really honest. This shift to digital has been tough.
Yeah.
But our purpose remains the same. We are still driving brand loyalty, amplifying awareness of our company and our business, driving engagement. And so the shift to digital, has been difficult, but it's also opened up the doors to new audiences. When our event pivoted, back in on March 17th, we then were scheduled to go live June 2nd and 3rd. But then the world changed again on June 1st, and in solidarity with Black Lives Matter and with Blackout Tuesday with the music industry, we pivoted again and postponed Cisco Live 2 weeks later. So, that has definitely been a first in my career.
Yeah.
But the ability to reach a broader audience, we had over 125,000 participants over 2 days on Cisco Live. That's an audience we never would have reached or tried to reach or thought about reaching just doing the live event. We always had a digital component to our live event, but more of a digital broadcast. Hey, see what's going on. Now we're looking at the digital event opportunity as a way to tap into new audiences, new markets, even if they're just passing by, give them that exposure to the brand experience that they might not have paid for before. And when we come back in person, maybe there's an opportunity to transition them from just digital to coming in person for more of that deeper dive engagement with our experts. So, while at first it was really hard and really scary, now we're really looking at it as this unique moment in time to just go bigger.
That's right. Well, that perfectly tees up my next question for you, Rick, which is, how is the production for live events evolving in the virtual setting? what worked for a live stream in April when, you know, the Chris Martins of the world were live streaming, you know, from a stationary camera in front of their piano is very different for what consumers expect now. So how are you incorporating that into the shows that you guys are putting together?
You know, that's fantastic question, because if you look at what Billie Eilish just did, that really raised the bar and the expectations for people, you know, who are viewing any sort of live stream or pre-record, because now they're saying, hey, look, you can do that. That is possible. There are ways to make this production look great and do it in a healthy, safe way where, you know, we're not getting big crowds of people together, but we are having artists and production. And of course, with that production, what comes along with that are jobs for people who are out of work, the tour managers, the production managers, stagehands, everybody. As this thing grows, the economy of music is not going to just start back up the next day. You know, it's not going to flip a switch and everything's going to come back on. It's going to take things like these big corporate events and productions kind of priming the pump a little bit. And we're saying, okay, guys, we can do this. Let's get this done. Your tour may not be for 6 or 8 more months, but you can be designing a production for an event. The budgets are there as far as I'm concerned. There are clients like Heather willing to say, hey, look, I want something spectacular for my attendees. I'm kind of past the guy with his guitar in the kitchen. What are they willing to do? And that's where we are now, having those discussions. And it's interesting because I think, you know, on one hand, there's a lot of people just chomping at the bit to get back at it and say, I've got this lighting design and this video idea. And on the other hand, you have other people saying, let's pump the brakes. I really don't want to put too many people into a situation yet. So it's a very tough balance that we're seeing right now. But I do believe that the next evolution is going to be bigger production for virtual events.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Can you tell us about some of the different styles you've experimented with? I had the chance to check out the performance Lenny Kravitz did for you guys back in August, for example, and that had kind of a sepia-toned music video documentary feel to it. And it was, again, not a stationary camera. It was like a full cam kind of shoot.
Yeah, it felt like a Fellini movie or something.
Yeah.
It was so interesting the way he shot that. And when you have an artist that's so creative, not just musically, but visually, it's fantastic. And I think that you're going to see a lot of these artists, these songwriters, you know, who are creative on so many different fronts, starting to say, oh, you know what? Yeah, okay, that is a great way to do it. I saw Moon Taxi do a thing from the Exit Inn, and it was fantastic because of the way it was shot and the production. It really, for just that short time, made me feel like I'm at a show. Mm-hmm. It gave you that kind of immersive feeling like, oh, this is great. I'm standing here looking at a stage. And that was, you know, I haven't had that feeling in so long. And the emotions that went along with that, I think, are fantastic. And I think that if we can capture that for more artists, it'll be a lot easier to keep people engaged in front of a screen to see shows.
That's one thing we're talking about as we look at talent, you know, for our upcoming digital events, is really that on location opportunity, kind of that unique, you know, you don't get it normally. You're right. We've moved past the guitar in the kitchen, but that's where we were at the time. But now I know artists, I know one today that's, I think in the next couple of days, doing live from the Bluebird, and you register to watch. And so you get to kind of have that experience, you know, within an intimate setting, but it's for, you know, a huge audience. And we're excited, and we're actually putting that into our budgets for our digital events coming up for Cisco Live, is, you know, doing some of this talent filming on a location, doing fun and different things with it. Now that, you know, in smaller groups we can gather, you know, where feasible. And I just think it's going to even open up more opportunity, you know, for some really cool stuff.
Well, speaking of, I'm sensing a theme. Is it fair to say that you've increased your frequency of these events that you might not have done pre-COVID, or are you just rethinking the way you're doing it? Like how is your overall volume?
So our overall event portfolio is not really shifting. You know, we're still doing Cisco Live next June. Cisco Impact, which is our big sales kickoff, still took place in August. Our partner summit, I think they're on the EMEAR wave or APJC wave today. So we're still doing our big flagship events, but for example, in my event directly, we're infusing more talent than we ever have before because the opportunity is there. So, because you're not paying for travel and, trying to schedule, a lot of these can be done with just, video capture at your time and send us the file. It makes it so much easier to engage more talent and infuse it throughout the event more than I could in a live environment. So we'll still be doing the live environment, but we will be adding more talent within the digital environment as well.
I want to follow up on that real quick, but friendly reminder for those of you who have about 15 minutes left. If you do have any questions for Rick and Heather, please drop them in the Q&A. Rick, to follow up to that point, how many of if any, how many of these events are live versus pre-recorded, and are there easy solves for that live?
Well, first off, I want to touch on something that was left unsaid in Heather's conversation. What Heather did not say is that they are slashing budgets and trying to get artists to do things on the cheap, which is great because that is not what the industry needs. No. So that is, Heather's the type of partner and Cisco's the type of partner, they're like, we want to get the best out of this artist. So what do we need to do? Right. And that's always been their kind of, fall back to that, which is great. That's great in your partners. You want that. And one of the things that we're going to see tying together in the future as well, and I know that Jess is a big part of this, but NEVA, we've got all these independent venues that are suffering. And for us to be able to tie these things together and say, hey, look, we can pay this venue to do this performance that we want anyhow, and the artist can be comfortable going into this safe setting. We're able to help out a lot of people at the same time. And we know that, once again, the industry is not bouncing back tomorrow. But if we are able to do these live streams from location, pre-recorded, because live, Andrew, is scary. Whether it's power, internet, anything could happen. With pre-records, we'll do these deals if it's, when it happens in a great way, we'll do these deals 4 or 5 weeks out, and the artist has time to record that content and get that content to us. And that way we're not saying, okay, we need this weekend. And the artist can say, okay, look, I'm renting studio space so I can go out and have a bigger production. And my production manager is going to join me, and we'll have lighting and we'll have audio. And, live is scary. It just really is, because anything can happen. We love a good pre-record.
Yes, ditto.
It feels safe. And for now, it allows, these events, they're not just a standalone concert. There's a whole, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days worth of programming, and allows the people programming when they know, okay, we can move that 5 minutes this way or 5 minutes this way because it's not, or change it a whole day. Right. Because it's not live, they have the ability to move these things around.
Mm-hmm. I also think pre-record gives the artist the flexibility to do it on their time frame, assuming it's within, the window of my time frame. And they're just much more, it's more accommodating to them. I think Sting recorded his, overnight, he's like, oh, I'll go record this one, for Cisco. And it worked out great. And I just think I agree with Rick. We have learned, minimize the risk as much as possible when doing these digital events. There are some key elements we do live. Our CEO will always do a live keynote because, one, he's that good. And two, he always wants to be relevant. When we postponed, and the same with the artists, we had to go through all of the recordings, when we postponed because of the civil unrest in the country, he wanted to be able to address it in real time. And we had to go through all of our recorded sessions and be sure, everything was still relevant and we weren't tone deaf to what was happening.
I was going to say, you cannot pre-record any speech right now.
No, and it's like John Gurley said earlier, it's tough to stay relevant 6 months out. I mean, now it's 2 days out.
2 days,
so,
exactly. Yeah.
Speaking of that earlier chat, I talked with Scott and John also about how, certainly the importance of discovery is more crucial than ever in this live stream moment. So how are you guys incorporating that into these Cisco Lives? I mean, of course, you're still working with the superstar headliners, but is there a discovery pipeline for more emerging acts to be part of this as well?
Always, definitely. I think that's, that's what Rick and the team bring to the table is they have this breadth and depth of knowledge of the industry that I don't have. I kind of have a very singular view just because of my husband's relation to the industry. So thankfully, Rick balances me and brings, some really cool artists to the table and for us to consider, like I said, the Imagine Dragons was a great example.
Yeah.
We hadn't heard of them yet when we booked them, really. And so, yeah, there's always that opportunity because I think it's also that opportunity to infuse, especially in digital events, more talent across makes it that much more fun. Even if it's just 2 or 3 minutes, it doesn't have to be a 20-minute set because I don't think that works well except in unique circumstances in digital events. In a technology conference, in a South by Southwest, it's different. But in what I do and what we're focused on, kind of those smaller nuggets of surprise and delight is really how we've been approaching things, and then anchoring with a bigger headliner maybe for the day.
Yeah. Yeah,
and it's all my world, Andrew. I mean, I'm always about, emerging artists. I mean, ever since I was a promoter, that's kind of my world.
That's great. And then going back to the production piece for a second, what role do some of these new technologies that have been accelerating during COVID, whether it's XR, VR, 3D gaming with things like Fortnite, et cetera, could that ever play a role with future iterations of these events, you think?
Absolutely.
100%. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, we're trying to explore that right now. My audience would geek out to know, they would be so thrilled if I brought esports and gaming into, one, competition, and two, it's that interactive. I think John was talking about it earlier, that Travis Scott concert. My 10-year-old son attended that and he was so excited, and it took me a while to understand what was happening because it's not my world.
Yeah.
But watching it through his eyes, I was like, okay, I see how you're making connections even in, this shut down, shelter in place environment.
And it's interesting, Andrew, it's tough for us in the industry as a general to figure out these shifts at this point. When are people getting bored with streaming? Granted, we saw that number where it's down a few percentage points. What's it going to take to turn that arrow back up? Is it the VR aspect? Is it the gamification? Is it skins? What is it? I mean, we talk about that every day.
Yeah, no, I mean, certainly virtual event fatigue is a real thing we all have to work to combat to keep people engaged and certainly keep people paid. Absolutely. Follow-up question to that, which is from the chat, Rick. How does an emerging artist get discovered right now? How does a newer artist come on someone like yours radar who's booking these things? What advice would you have?
Same as always, if the music's good and it's out there to be discovered, we'll discover it. I've got a team of, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like 7 people, and we all consume different music. None of us are pretty much in the same lane. So if it's out there to be discovered, somebody is going to hear it and say, you guys got to hear this. And whether they're finding it on Twitch or Fortnite or YouTube or Spotify or whatever, we are all consuming music differently, but pretty constantly.
Yeah.
I don't think I answered that question well, but
that definitely helps. The answer, I would agree. The answer is the same, whether it's real world or not. Focus on the music. Mm-hmm. Good, I always think that good music finds its audience no matter what the situation, but absolutely embrace technology along the way. Heather, I'm curious, I mean, just as a music fan, how do you discover music? Maybe it's through your 10-year-old or other channels.
It's a combination through my 10-year-old and my husband, quite honestly. So that's how I discover music. And then, what my peers and my partners kind of bring to the table. I've become a very big fan of like Elle King because I hadn't heard of her, and then we booked her for an event and just thoroughly enjoyed, because I also enjoy getting to know the artist as a person. So that's what I find really, really enjoyable, how they operate, my engagement with them from, working with them with G7 and with the events, tells me a lot about that artist. So I tend to kind of be a fan of once I've engaged with them in some way, whether hearing their music or having the opportunity to hear about them or hear them interviewed. I enjoy hearing artists interviewed, and I enjoy hearing songwriters talk about their music and how they develop their music. And then when I hear it from the artist itself who released the music, it's always fun to tie it all together.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned Elle King. I did a virtual event with her as well recently, and she was speaking to us from her goat farm in New Mexico. It's those types of things you would never
Right.
get to necessarily hear about, experience if we weren't in this moment together. So,
And I think that's what another, as the team knows, and I think several members of my team are on. I'm always trying to look for what is the positive out of the situation. What's the opportunity we have? And I think we as music consumers have had the opportunity to get to know artists beyond, a play or one time hearing it on the radio or just, at the concert. You're getting to know them as people. And I always find that very intriguing because, again, I think that's tying to brand loyalty or to the, to the admiration for that artist. And I think the way we're using them in digital, with like what we did with Lenny Kravitz and Fall Out Boy and Joan Jett, just getting to know them personally or in a little different way, a little behind the scenes look, is really a unique experience than just coming up, playing a song and walking off stage.
That's right. Rick, we have one more question for you from the Q&A, which is, how are your conversations with agents different now when you're booking these things?
You know what?
Given you're still able to offer fair rates, but what do those conversations look like?
When in the good situations, the agents are understanding that the landscape's changing and it's shifting, and there are going to be some really dynamic changes made in the next few months that to accommodate, more COVID restrictions. So some of the agents and some of the managers are just brilliant at that, and they're like, okay, what can we do? How can we help you? I had a great conversation with Matt Ringel the other day, and Matt is fantastic. He's a bit of a futurist because he's looking for what's next. Yeah. And that's when we're doing that, we're successful. On the other side of that, there are people that we're talking to that are saying, well, we've got this tour booked for starting in January. We're like, you know what? You don't, we know you don't. So rather than saying that, why not just say, hey, some of my artists are hesitant. Can you walk me through this and tell me what it's going to be like? Or, here's the financial expectations we have. Can we meet those? Can we get to that threshold, or am I way too high? That's kind of where we are. We're still setting the bar. It's kind of settling in. So we're starting to see, okay, this is what's expected for this type of performance. And now that we're adding that additional production element and recording in venues, things are creeping up a little bit. And like I said, the good partners are saying, look, I'd rather see this be a little better. What's that going to cost me for additional production? That's where we are right now. And I think that the agents and managers that are willing to have those conversations are going to find themselves in a better place financially at the end of 2021.
Yeah. Yeah. Meeting the moment will help us all thrive. Absolutely. Well, real quick, before we wrap, I do want to end things on a futurist note, to your point, Rick, which is when we are able to finally go back to concerts at scale, what will those look like as we get used to some of these new behaviors we're all developing with incorporating technology, et cetera?
You know what? I want to deflect that to Heather a little bit and say, Heather, is anybody pitching you yet on the technologies to get people through the doors? Are you seeing things for large scale temperature taking and things like that? Are people pitching you on that sort of stuff yet?
My team, yes. Me, not quite yet, because they're evaluating the options. But yeah, I think that's what's coming. I think it's hard to define what it is because there's still so much uncertainty on when we can start. And what I'm struggling with is we're trying to plan in-person events based on today's criteria. It could change next Wednesday. It could change in 30 days. And then we're changing again. So, obviously as a technology company, we're looking for ways to incorporate more technology in to bring the audiences in and evaluating those. But technology also changes, every other day. So I don't know if I did a very good job catching that deflection, but I think we're trying to figure out How?
Yeah.
It's an impossible
That's what
question.
I wanted to know. And then, Andrew, early on in all this, I was getting all these interview requests, and I was like, absolutely not. Because what I say today is going to look
Right.
really stupid in like 2 weeks. So I'm just
Right.
going to keep my mouth shut and listen to what everybody else says. And then we'll see where we are in, October. And now it's time to say, okay, this is going to be kind of the status quo for a bit longer. Let's make the best of it for everybody.
Agreed.
Excellent. Well, Rick, Heather, I cannot thank you enough for sharing your time, sharing your insights with all of us. And thank you all who've tuned in to join us today. I'm going to kick it back to Nicole.
Thank you, Andrew, so much for the great moderation of both of those segments today, and both the segments you did the first time around. Greatly appreciate your expertise, and always smiling. We love that as well. So thank you so much. I chuckled a few times during the conversations today because it makes me think of our own staff meetings here at Music Biz. Live is scary, and pivot again. I mean, these are all words that we've been using here at our association as we're looking at our events. And I want to thank Clio and G7 because they trusted Music Biz to pivot this brand summit from what should have been face-to-face with 2,500 of our friends in Nashville in May to this virtual series that we've brought to you for the past 4 weeks. So thank you, Jess and Michael and your teams for helping bring this together. Thank you for our great panelists today. If you missed any of the brand summit, there will be an email going out hopefully very early next week with the recordings for all of the sessions, October 8th, 15th, 22nd, and 29th. So be on the lookout for that to hit your inbox so that you can take advantage of watching or rewatching these to learn even more. So thank you for being with us today. Again, thank you, Clio. Thank you, G7. And we hope to see you back on the Common Ground webinar series soon. Take care. Stay safe. Bye-bye.